Netflix premiered Dennis Heaton and Shelley Erickson's science fiction series The Imperfects on September 8, 2022. It is marketed as a coming-of-age story, a play on the phrase coming of age, and it centers on three young adults who are on the hunt for the crazy scientist who messed with their DNA and gave them disruptive superpowers. They run into other people with strange abilities and evil researchers who want to take their DNA. They also understand that Flux, a mysterious federal agency, is looking for them. Before I start, please subscribe to my channel Teleflix and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Major spoilers ahead if you have not watched The Imperfect Season 1 yet. Acute genetic decay program, often known as AGDS, is a rare genetic ailment that appears to affect Tilda, Abby, and Juan, all three. They had all received care from controversial geneticist Dr. Alex Sarkov in the past through a program dubbed the Wellness Program. The three of them now each possess one of three types of powers as a result. Tilda now has improved hearing and vocal cords. Pheromones that Abby emits cause people to become sexually attracted by her. And Juan passes out and transforms into a chupacabra, a figure from American folklore. They were able to live normal lives since they had all three been taking medicines for years to keep these powers under control. Tilda is a lead vocalist in a band, Abby is getting ready to enroll in Oxford's genetics department, and Juan wants to be a graphic writer. The powers begin to reappear once the tablets stop coming. They go to Sarkov's office, where Sarkov examines them and administers tests before giving them the medication. However, those end up being placebos and do little to alleviate their problems. They run across Dr. Sidney Burke, Sarkov's partner, when they return for a second visit. The three young adults find out from Burke that Burke and Sarkov started the wellness program together. They enlisted young patients with inherited diseases that haven't been passed down through their families. Even though they told their patients they were utilizing cells from their own bodies, they discovered a technique to fix the mistakes in the damaged genes of these patients by using a synthetic cell Sarkov manufactured. It is analogous to updating the operating system on a computer, but on a cellular level, as Abby puts it. Sarkov became convinced that he could utilize the synthetic cell to totally replace the human genome with a superior design after the success of the wellness program. The three protagonists' changed cells were stabilized by the medications they were taking. Sarkov stopped providing the medications because he wanted his treatment's adverse effects to become apparent, Tilda, Abby, and Juan realize. Burke agrees to a system when asked, but adds that it will be simpler for her if Sarkov is there, which prompts Tilda, Abby, and Juan to start looking for him. They run into Doug, whose DNA Sarkov changed far later in the investigation than the three main characters. Because Sarkov developed Tilda, Abby, and Juan during the early stages of his research, they are known as the Imperfects. Their abilities evolve over the series, particularly Tilda's. By the end of the season, she possesses the ability to melt people's brains and can detect deception in others. Others from the program, even some who never met the requirements, begin to appear. Hannah, one of them, strikes up a romance with Abby. During an attack by a rogue scientist who has changed like Tilda and the others, Tilda loses her boyfriend in the meantime. The three protagonists learn that Flux, a covert government agency whose main function is to control rogue scientists and their inventions, has developed a keen interest in them while all of this is going on. Burke also appears to be experiencing a severe case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. She has AGDS as well, and in an effort to self-medicate, she adopted the Isabel Finch persona. Both her demeanor and appearance alter as she morphs. Killer Finch preys on those who work in Burke's industry. At some point, Tilda, Abby, and Juan locate Sarkov, and they appear to persuade him to heal them. Later, it is discovered that he has other ideas. Abby, Tilda, and Flux join forces with Sarkov in the season finale to bring him down. Sarkov eventually leads Tilda and Juan to him, and when they do, he explains the rationale behind his horrifying experiments. He asserts that there is a complicated connection between the increasing deterioration of the human genome, population growth, and the climatic issue. Climate change and human evolution have historically coexisted. However, since the advent of the industrial age, climate change has been accelerating so quickly that it is outpacing human progress. As a result, rather than gaining new capabilities, human DNA is decaying. This is AGDS. In order to prevent mankind from being the first species to drive itself extinct, Sarkov's effort aims to overcome this. Thoughts of the larger good may be there in what Sarkov is attempting, they are overshadowed by the sheer wickedness of his behavior. He uses nanobits to disseminate his inventions, but Tilda foils his scheme. Sarkov discovers that Burke has created a technique that eliminates the need for the nanobits. Nevertheless, Sarkov promises to make the metamorphosis permanent, so Finch agrees to give it to him. Juan will serve as the test subject, they decide. But it turns out that this is the remedy the heroes have been hunting for. It heals Juan instead of turning him into the chupacabra. The serum is then administered to Finch by Abby while she is facing Burke. Burke eventually heals Abby. Tilda, however, declines assistance and opts to maintain her abilities. It is made known that Dominique Crane, a senior employee of Flux, has been contributing money to Sarkov's study via a front business. Sarkov is brought into custody by Flux. Sarkov is shocked to see Burke seated on the other side of the desk when he is brought to Crane's former office 3 months later. But when he sees that Finch is in charge of Burke's body, he also learns that his initial judgment was incorrect. Sarkov is hauled away after he accepts to work for Flux. Dr. Hallenbeck, who appears to be an older version of Sarkov, is then contacted by Burke Finch. To deal with the looming crisis mentioned before, Hallenbeck appears to have genetically modified a version of himself. Sadly, Sarkov proved to be more erratic and hazardous than his creator had anticipated. Hallenbeck now regrets having chosen to hire him. It seems Burke has always been aware of Sarkov's true identity. Finch is well aware of it, as Burke is aware. There is an intriguing interaction between Hallenbeck, Finch, and Sarkov as he doesn't appear to be aware that he is actually speaking to Finch. The three main characters fail to stop Sarkov's plot from coming to fruition, and people start turning into monsters. Juan and Abby are also impacted by it because they both forfeited their skills. Tilda, who retains her abilities, does not change. Flux is the most obvious offender in this. The mysterious government organization seems to be the most plausible candidate to have actually weaponized Sarkov's research, especially because Finch is in charge of it and Sarkov works for them. However, it's also feasible that a group or lone scientist is responsible. They have discovered Sarkov and Burke's studies and are currently utilizing them to compel humanity to evolve. Currently, there is a chance that the Imperfects will return for a second season. The showrunners and Netflix ultimately control the direction of the program. Deadly Class, a comparable show that debuted in 2019 with a vision that was reasonably close to that of a comic book, was ultimately cancelled after the first season despite receiving largely favorable reviews from the critics. The same received ratings that were also greater than those for The Imperfects, but it had little hope against Netflix's god of cancellation. The end of the series' intentionally twisted plot discloses a well-kept secret, but there is currently no firm assurance that it will be revived for a second season. We are first introduced to Dr. Hallenbeck as the elderly man who may be a victim of his own making. The curtain is finally thrown back, revealing Dr. Alex Sarkov as the result of an experiment himself when they speak on video with Dr. Burke. So it turns out that there is a second major bad guy, and that Sarkov was actually a genetically constructed super-intellect created in the likeness of Hallenbeck. It appears that there is a lot to be explained about the true nature of the bond that Burke and Hallenbeck shared and how Sarkov ultimately came to be. Sydney, who was first viewed as the season 1 do-gooder, is now responsible for it all. Idealistically, the cast and crew should return to explain these cliffhangers and the unexpected narrative turns that have radically changed how we view some of the previously well-known decent people in the show.